I am just over the moon to be hosting this panel. This has been an incredible week for the Thrive Summit. I cannot believe that this is our grand finale. And what a grand finale it is. So over the course of the week, we have expanded, we've rested, we've gotten clear, and now we're closing out this sacred space with one of my favorite ways to land the plane, hearing directly from the women who are in it, who are doing the work, who are upgrading their identities and creating powerful shifts in real time. So this final panel is about what's possible when you stop hustling for worth and instead root into who you are becoming. And what better way to show you what's possible than to bring together three brilliant clients to share their stories. As we were chatting before everybody else came in, I was just like, I just want to jump through the computer and like give everybody hugs. I wish I could teleport everyone to just like one awesome hang, ideally in Milagros' space. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that shortly. But these women in particular have made really bold moves in their businesses. But more importantly, they have upgraded their identities. And I've had the distinct pleasure of watching this unfold. So I know you're going to see yourself in their stories, and I hope you'll leave knowing what's possible for you too. So let me tell you a little bit about our phenomenal panelists. My goal is to make them cry at some point during this session, but probably not with these one-liners. So Leah Dominique Andres is the president of Mockingbird Public Adjusting, where she advocates for property owners while running her family business, homeschooling her teens, and cultivating community in Northern Florida. Alyssa Cromer is the co-founder of Cromer Law, a boutique immigration law firm in California, and she blends slow living, motherhood, and gentle entrepreneurship to build a practice rooted in authenticity and care. And boy, oh boy, does immigration law need that tender heart right now. And then Milagros Brown, founder of the Play Shop in Washington, D.C. It's a thoughtfully designed event space that makes gatherings effortless, joyful, and meaningful. It's a true family business where her little ones often hang out behind the scenes, and her husband, JB, works his magic to help keep things running so Milagros can really shine. So, phenomenal panel here. And that's sort of broad strokes where they are, but I want to give you a little glimpse into where they are now, because each of you has had such significant years. So I'm going to give you a preview of where, like, what's unfolded in the last 12 to 18 months for these women. And then I'll ask some questions and you'll hear from them and not just me. So, Alyssa, you went from thinking about opening this practice with your husband, Kaleem, which, like, you guys had been tossing it around, but the amount of time it took from go from like, yeah, this is it, this is the right move for our family, and we're going to do it, to like filing the paperwork, getting the office space, opening your doors, getting the website stood up, while parenting a 3-year-old and 20-month-old twins is just mind-boggling. And like, you found this magical treehouse office. Leah, you stepped so fully into your role as leader of your business. You took radical charge of what was under your control. You embodied this new version, like whiplash fast. You have worked on expanding your credentials and certifications to better serve your community. You've totally rethought how an industry like public adjusting could be filled with soul and service. And Milagros, in the past year, you have gone so bold on growth. You experimented with pop-up locations. You got really creative about how to use your space and like opened this whole co-working arm of your business. And you invited in a total creative powerhouse as a business partner to help you bring your vision forward. Holy moly! Can we drop some emojis for what these women have accomplished? And these are really visible outer shifts, and those matter. But as we know, every external milestone starts with an internal upgrade. So, panel, I'm going to turn it over to you. And Alyssa, I'm going to start with you on this question, and then I'd love to have our other panelists jump in. But could you share a little bit about your identity before this transformation, before the opening of Cromer Law, and how you were showing up and what that felt like?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here, and my chest is heavy. I haven't shed a tear yet, but I can feel it. I can feel it coming. This is a lot of reflection, and sometimes I don't always get to do much of that, and so I'm really excited. So, wow. So when I first started working with Olivia, I we did a practice of archetyping, and Olivia asked me to describe who I was standing in, or what version of me I was standing in that day. And it came to me right away. It was the obedient worker. And my body was physically done. I had severe sciatica going down the left side of my body. I wasn't sleeping because I couldn't lay or sit for any period of time without pain, and so I was literally walking through the middle of the night. I was beyond exhausted, beyond burnt out. I didn't understand how to communicate my needs. I didn't even really know what my needs were. I couldn't really hear um myself at all. And Olivia asked me some questions in those early sessions that rocked that foundation so completely. And they were pretty, like, I would say, simple thoughts that I just never allowed myself to have. And so when Olivia asked me, like, what version of myself I wanted to step into, my response was radiant mama goddess. And I didn't know what that meant at all. And Olivia said, if you were to quit your job tomorrow, which was insane because that was not even on the table. Like, no, I work a 9 to 5 at a desk. I make the paychecks. I have the health insurance. Like, no, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to figure out how to get a raise and a promotion. It's not to it's not to quit my job. Like, that's not even an idea. But if I were to quit my job, what are 5 things I could do tomorrow to make money? And it shook me up and allowed me to envision something different. So yeah, so I went from obedient worker to radiant mama goddess. And maybe I don't feel embodied in that every day, but a lot of days I do.
I love that. Thank you, Alyssa. Leah or Milagros, do you want to share a little bit about your before version?
When I started with you, it was just like I felt a connection to you, and I thought, well, this could be interesting, where I'm trying to make this business feel more real. Mhm. But I showed up to you with a lot of resentment toward my partner and my husband because I felt like we had decided that I was going to homeschool full time and I was going to do X, Y, and Z. And like, why am I doing this? Right? But fine, I'll just do this and I'll pass it all off to him. Like I'll sit for these meetings with Olivia, but then I'll just tell him what to do and I'll just like put it on his to-do list. And what happened is in the talks with you, I started to recognize that me becoming and me being designated as the president of our business, which I didn't really care much about beyond just being able to continue living the lifestyle that I had worked really hard for, which was being able to live in rural Florida and raise my kids and homeschool them and volunteer. It started to take a different life of its own. And I saw that I had been put as the president because the mission and the drive of this business could only be fueled by what I was bringing. And that was a really like huge thing when it happened. Like I feel like I crashed into myself. And it wasn't painful. It was actually like, oh wow, I actually feel good now. And everything prior to this has been painful. So I examined like all my resentment and all my shadow and my trauma and my immigration story. And it was like, wow, I actually am here and I can do this. And so most of our communications have just been me sharing this unfolding with you and you holding space for that. And me getting caught up to come out again with everything I received to now up level the business somewhere else that's more aligned to how I want the business to be and not necessarily how I thought it was going to be with my husband leading. Like I'm actually the leader and he's so pumped and we're so pumped and there's so much more to talk about. I'll move on.
Yeah, I love that we started working together, on website changes.
Yeah.
Sure, we can call it that.
So many winks on that. Yeah.
Uh, Milagros, do you mind sharing a little bit about your before?
Sure. Well, for starters, I guess we're good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to see some faces that are familiar to me and a bunch of new faces that I'm sure if you're here because of Olivia, we will be fast friends because she is magnetic and delightful and such a champion of women on their journey. So just happy to be in the room and I'm excited to hear from the other panelists too. I feel like there's so much that we can all learn from each other. Um, and it's a little kind of like funny even talking about this because I feel like the title and you including me in this panel is also your observation of it while I'm living in the growth moment and the change moment and the transformation of it. So um, I'm also self-talking to receive that I am in a moment of transformation and season shift. Um, so yes, I would say um, the external of what's being observed as a seasonal shift has probably been, I don't know, 35 years in the making, because part of this journey is not something that happens overnight. It doesn't happen in a series of a year or a week, or you wake up one morning and you decide to change your life and then you take all these actions and that happens, right? It's like seeds that perhaps you just start to slowly honor those seeds inside of you and water those seeds. So I would say like ever since I was small, I don't know if you all ever remember this movie called Baby Boom back from the 80s with Diane Keaton. But she was for those of you who had not seen it, she was a marketing exec in New York. She inherited a baby, which is a wild thing to even come up as a storyline. But she had inherited a baby. She didn't know how to make space for this baby in her life, ends up moving to Vermont, starts this like business that it was like organic baby food.
Yeah, boutique baby food. Yeah.
Yes, boutique baby food, right? And it like ends up being this thing, and she ends up being this like powerhouse, the CEO powerhouse of this business. And I've always, even as a child, I always like wanted that. Yeah. So for all of you who've seen it, right? I always, for some reason, it's so strange that like a child would be like, "That's it. That's the life. I want to be Diane Keaton as the female CEO superhero." I had always really attached myself to this idea. And, growing up, I knew that I came from a line of entrepreneurs who maybe had always tried having their own businesses, but had never had never kind of crossed the threshold of big success. But I always knew that like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I think particularly I've tried many, many things, and I won't go down the path of all the things that I've tried and grown from. I won't say tried and failed, but tried and grew and learned from. But I think in this particular season of starting the Play Shop, um, I attached power to saying something before I could see it. So I have always believed that I should be a business owner. I've always believed that I could be successful at it. And um, as most of us, you sometimes have these beliefs about yourself, but then life may be busy or you get caught up being a parent. I have two small children. There's a lot of external things that can either dilute your belief in yourself or distract you from the things that you believe about yourself to be true. And when I had the chance to even try opening this business, I would speak in big terms about what I believed was possible for the business. I believe this is important work. I believe I can serve the families of DC. I believe, when I first started my business, I just rented one office. Now I have the entire suite in the course of 2 years. So I believe that this space over here is not going to be an office, it's going to be a lounge. I believe we'll have multi-locations in DC. And I would say these things, receiving one, that it's okay to say these things out loud, and being at peace with that. And then two, also to force myself to do them. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to say these things because I've got this, I've got it all figured out. My self-confidence is through the roof. It was actually the opposite. It was like, let me say these things out loud so that compulsion of just putting it, one, I believe that when we say things, we put energy into the universe. And two, like, maybe somebody will hear it and figure out how to support me in that journey. So, and maybe I, by having spoken to it, will force myself to do something about it. So relentlessly, if I felt like it was a right moment to talk about it, I have talked about what I believe the business can be. Never what the business is right now, but what I believe forward facing the business can be. And so, what Olivia was talking about in terms of growth and having a pop-up location, had it been me having the choice to do these things, I would say no. But it kind of like, because I've talked such a big talk, these opportunities keep on presenting themselves. And by hook or crook, I'm kind of like forced to grow because I've already put that energy out into the universe that I believe I can grow. So, yes, so I hope that answers some of the question, but it's definitely a journey that started thanks to Diane Keaton, many, many years ago.
Diane Keaton. And I love how you're talking. So I teed this up about our identity upgrades as individuals. But what you've really pulled through is like your business also has its own destiny and identity upgrades. And I know we've talked about connecting with the spirit of your business, and we've helped, or I've helped you like tap into that. And so really letting your business be your business partner and letting your business help guide you forward. Like, it's not all on us. We have this whole other entity that chose us, right? That chose Leah, that chose Milagros, that chose Alyssa, that chose each of you listening because it wanted to partner with you to come into being on the terrestrial plane. And so, Milagros, I love how you are so tuned into what your business is kind of like. Come on, let's go. Let's do it. And you also talked about how, like, yeah, these changes have been decades in the making. But I'd love to hear from any of the panelists. Was there a turning point? Was there a moment or a realization that made you realize something's got to change? Yeah, Leah.
We were having a meeting and we were working, and I've mentioned this in the conference that we were trying to just work on the first line of the website and determine who we were serving. And I was so apathetic. I mean, I love the work that we do because we live in Florida and we have a lot of hurricanes. And my first was Hurricane Andrew in Miami. And I was very young. I think I was 12 or maybe even 11. And so I love weather. I love disasters, not in the way that may come across, but I love in what I see a community and how they respond. But most of the work that you think of a public adjuster doing is like homeowner to homeowner. And it wasn't until I sat with you and you were like, well, it's not just a property owner, it can also be an organization, it can be a business. And I was really adverse to that. And I think it was like me fighting with the spirit of my business. And it was like the first argument that we had internally that I was like, why, what is happening here? Like, what am I coming up against here? And it was so ironic because As we were having that meeting, Matthew, my husband, and my partner was doing an inspection here in town for a 120-year-old business that had been hit by a tornado. And it is the historical museum for our small town, which is a really big deal because they have a lot of documents on, you know, moments in our history that some people want to repress and hide. And they hold a lot of documents on old slavery plantations and just the evolution of our town. And here he was in this meeting while I am struggling. And I'm like, oh, that's what she means. She means organizations like that. I don't just have to work with these property owners. I can work with NGOs. I can work with historical organizations. They need our services. And that's where I felt like the spirit of my business come in and align me and say, Leah, this is the element that you've been missing. And so that's, I think, the transformation that I have seen take place more inside of me and me leading through that because my background is archaeology and anthropology and history. So that was that part of me that because I'm an immigrant to this country, I wasn't allowed to pursue that. I had to go to law or medicine. And if I wasn't doing either, I had to marry a lawyer or a doctor. And who was I to marry this gringo who studied art, right? That was already like faux pas number one. So it really is something that has brought me back to this place of where I had repressed myself for so many decades that I'm now able to focus back on the things that matter to me, which is community, culture, um, history, and these places that we value that give us a sense of place and belonging, and places that are being lost, not just because of funding, because my graduate works in nonprofit management and fund development. So not just because of funding, but weather and natural disasters and climate change. And so it imbues into this very cold industry a spirit. And Olivia, that work that you do with the spirit of your business has really been transformational because it took me from just maybe stoic technicalities to really getting deep into how has God been calling through me and shepherding me in this way that I hadn't slowed down long enough to see. And what are the things that I repressed that here are being birthed and asking for my acknowledgement and integration.
I love, thank you,
And
Leah.
one more thing. And
Yeah.
from that, I said, okay, well, so then who else is God putting on my path? So it's been historical buildings, elderly, and that has been a new pivot for me, working with elderly folks who still reside in their house. Or the client is an elderly woman who takes care of her mother. So she's in her, her late 70s, the mother's in her 90s. And then flood victims who have completely lost their homes. I mean, like washed away, lost their homes. And so that has really been like, okay, follow here. That's the spirit. That's where the spirit of the business comes in and says, follow here.
So beautiful. And what I love that you touched on that I know we had talked about as we were putting this panel together is each of you on this panel, I know so many of you listening right now, you are all spiritual entrepreneurs. So you might be in industries that look like insurance, public adjusting, law, events, all consulting, looking at I'm not going to go through everybody who's on the call right now, but so you might not be like a Reiki practitioner, you might not be a spiritual advisor, but you are all spiritual entrepreneurs and you are all finding ways to bring this beauty and sacredness and deep, deep service into your work. And what I love about what I get to do is these are the people that I want to have a lot of money, right? Because these are businesses. And I want your businesses to make a lot of money because who do I want to have more money in the world? Y'all. Because when people like you are making bank, we put it back into our communities. We invest in other small businesses. We are doing palpable good in the world. And so having businesses and having a thriving, successful business can be a spiritual act in the hands of the right people. And that is what I think is so exciting about looking at this work in this way. It's not an either or, right? It's not more noble to like undercharge and try to skate by the skin of your teeth and run yourself ragged and just give it away and give it away and give it away. And then you can no longer serve and you don't have that major financial power to do like really awesome good because we've got to outspend some of those tech bros doing their thing, right? We've got to counterbalance that. I also want to say, folks who are joining us live, who are listening, I want your questions too. So I could ask these people all my questions, but if you have things you want to know, pop it in the chat or feel free to come off mute. Brittany says, big same. This is the economy I want to live in, right? Imagine if this was the cornerstone of the economy. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's make that happen. All right. I would also, so ladies, I would love to hear if you want to share more about your turning points, but also what does it look like to embody this new way of working? Certainly it could be in the day-to-day of your work, but also like when things are uncomfortable, when you're pushing up against like a big expansion moment, what does it look like to tap into this new version of self? And then Kylie, we'll come back to your question. Thank you.
I can jump in if you like. Yeah, I feel like it's been nothing but uncomfortable the whole thing. And I think that normalizing the discomfort of it, and then what has been, I think, a bit of a shift that has felt empowering is like now celebrating the discomfort of growth. Like a couple of points. I have two small children. Um, having opening the play shop is literally having another child. So, and Olivia has affirmed that, as she mentioned, because we have done Reiki work with the business, and it really fully has its own identity, desires. It is here for a purpose. And if I am not the person who like does the work, it will find somebody else to do to do the work, but it will exist in this world some one way or the other. So I'm grateful that I get to be the shepherd of it in this season of it. And sort of like when whether it's parenthood or something where you realize that there are things that you have to do that are uncomfortable to protect people who can't do it for themselves yet. Like for my children, when I have to go to school to advocate on their behalf, when I need to teach them lessons about the world that serve them but may feel uncomfortable in that moment, I also have to step into an identity that is bigger than myself to protect my business. So, prior to opening the business, as I would say, I would venture to say, most women are, a bit of a people pleaser. I don't want people to not like me. I don't want people to be uncomfortable around me. Part of being a brown woman too is about being observational and then adapting yourself to fit into spaces when you're not the majority. And so that's sort of like an unconscious part of my identity. And certainly when I signed the lease for my space, I definitely was playing the hand of like, I'm just so happy to be here. I can't believe you're letting me pay money to like occupy a space, like totally diminishing my power in the situation. That I have like signed a financial transaction with a property owner to bring value to their space, right? And so I had so diminished myself that really the business was like, no, 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 no. You need to step up into power to protect us. And that has really been, I think, probably the most transformative experience has been releasing the desire to be liked and embracing the desire to do good, meaningful work, which sometimes makes people uncomfortable. So yeah, I think really like learning to look forward to challenges, learning to look forward to discomfort, and then knowing tripping and failing and all of that gets you closer to being able to walk, just like babies. Like they fail so much until they can do the thing. I think has really like the woman who started the business versus the woman now. I wouldn't have chosen the path, but the growth, I'm so grateful for the growth, you know. So
Yeah, and I really do believe that our part of the role of our businesses is to invite us into these next levels of ourselves, right? They shine a real bright spotlight on everything that needs to be healed or integrated. And as we do that, it pays dividends everywhere else, right? So the more you embrace discomfort in your business, Milagros, the more you can be comfortable with the discomfort of like having to go to the school and advocate for your kids, right? So we build this muscle in one arena, and a lot of us like find the business, like it just makes it really clear when you've got to do it. There's no hiding, but then it pays off. Like Cami was talking about boundaries earlier this week. When you can draw boundaries in your business, guess what? It's a lot easier to draw boundaries in your personal life too. All right, Kylie, you had a great question. So as you've gained clarity and alignment, have you turned clients down? And how do you protect this clarity? Has anyone turned down a client that wasn't aligned?
I've not turned down any clients, but I it's kind of like what Milagros was talking about, that I've been paying attention to what comes. And in that way, listening to the spirit of the business, and also a lot of the work that I've been doing. I think Brittany maybe was asking about like grieving, and I have a huge towel here to cry into. Um, I don't even know if I can get through saying it. Was it ancestral work? And coming to terms with how it took my ancestors 100 years or more to arrive where I am. So I feel like they are also guiding me forward. So the grieving has been, I think, more of maybe the superficial ways that I was previously, and I am not a superficial person, but I still will humble myself and know there's shadow enough that there were superficial ways that I was running as a mother and as a business owner, and that there was something deeper that I still feel like the spirit of my ancestors and the spirit of my business, by what they were giving and presenting me with, was kind of continuing to refine that process. So I'm not in a place of necessarily turning anybody down. We have kind of rewritten how we do our work in and of itself. I'm a mediator designated by the Supreme Court of Florida. That's a very big designation. So even in negotiating, I have very high and moral ethical values toward the process of negotiating and nonviolent communication. But I'm still just allowing spirit, God, to guide, and trusting that things will fall into place. I hope I've answered 2 questions with 1 stone. And challenging process, I think, is just being able to see the difficult parts of life and loss, and immigration, and my immigration story and visibility, how I was playing small and people pleasing. Sorry for the sirens. For coming to this country and spending years not being able to communicate, and how most people don't see that I'm a woman that's an immigrant. And so it's a very difficult juxtaposition to navigate while I live in a very small rural part of Florida.
And whew, a lot of hearts were popping up as you were sharing that. And thank you for naming the ancestral component too, because our ancestors are with us in this work. And as we've talked about, like your business has its own ancestral lineage too. And so bringing that in can be really powerful as well. So yeah, Leah, what you started to respond to was this question from Brittany. I'd love to hear about some of the things panelists have had to grieve or let go of. It's easy to say, let go of things that aren't serving you, but that can be a really challenging process. And Alyssa, I know you kicked us off, but I'd love to turn that over to you if anything comes to mind. Is there anything you've had to let go of that led to some grief?
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, and I kind of will start. I feel like maybe I'll answer a couple of the questions that come up because this is also part of it. But I think that my business honestly spoke to me, years and years ago, but I didn't know what form it was going to take. Um, and so when I kind of hit my yes moment, it didn't feel like a yes moment. And I think that that's kind of a point I want to make is that sometimes like stepping into your power and stepping into, these next big moves don't feel necessarily like a full throttle yes. Sometimes it's a quiet voice that you just have to trust and say, yeah, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing it even it's not that it doesn't feel right, it's just quiet, and I think I've had a lot of those moments through the years, but I've also had some pretty big ground shaking ones as well, like, when I woke up one morning and could not go back to work. It was a pretty intense moment. I was the primary breadwinner for our family, and I was so ill mentally, physically, that I woke up and was like, I cannot do a single more day of this. And I called my husband who was interning at the time and said, I gotta step away from work because I'm just absolutely done. And that was not like a big yes moment. It was a pretty terrifying, like, no moment, but my body felt it. I remember calling Olivia and she said, how does your body feel when you think about not going back to work tomorrow? And I felt a entire rush run through my body. Um, and I knew it was a yes. And so I was in a really rough spot mentally, physically, and um, and that was in 2022 when I had that moment, and we are launching Cromer Law, now, 2025, and so it was a lot of years between, and a lot of steps, and a lot of healing myself without even thinking about the business. It was, taking steps of letting go of things that no longer served you and served me. I was reading Brittany's comment because I that was what I wanted to respond to. And for me, I was battling some substance abuse issues that I had to face head on, things that I didn't even realize were like had crept um into my life. It was pretty subtle. And so I had to make some like really, really big personal shifts to be able to stand where I am today. And they were painful and there was a lot of grief and looking back on past behaviors and past actions. And I will tell you the other thing that I try to pay a lot of attention to now is that sometimes those past behaviors and past actions creep in when I'm about to make another big step, a big move forward. And it's really good to know that now because sometimes I'm like, what's happening? Like, why am I reacting this way? And now that I can see that, I can realize that it's a just it's something that happens to me when things are about to like move forward, that sometimes I go backwards. And um so anyway, I feel like I'm a little bit rambly, but I hope that that answered some things we've been talking about.
Um, I hate to say it, but we are like nearing the end of our time for this panel. So, Alyssa, I think I love that you called out that those less supportive behaviors can really rear their heads when we are on the edge of expansion. And that is because your nervous system will choose familiarity as safety over real safety and expansion every time. And so I'll notice this with myself. If I'm having a big up level, I'm like, oh, I really want that Campari spritz. It's like, oh, cool signal. Good to know. And sometimes I have it. Often I can just be like, thanks for the intel. And just noticing all that with such deep compassion and whatever your way of sort of outsourcing your regulation may be. Megan said, thank you for sharing. I'm so excited to have been able to see the process of your transformation. I'm so proud of you and excited for your new business. So before I get, thank you, Leah. Leah can stay on for additional questions. Before I get to my closing remarks, and panel, I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I would love to hear if you have one little nugget of wisdom or a brief anecdote that you would love to share with others who are navigating their own expansion, up level, stepping into a new identity, and maybe on that precipice where it's like, oh shit. What might you say to someone in that position?
You want me to start? I can.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say I heard this before, so it's not an original thought, but that you can't move your life forward by thinking. You have to do it by doing. And really, that's what got me out the gate to start the business. Was I had a business coach who was just like, stop planning. You're not going to like know what your business needs by thinking through it. You have to start bringing it to the market. And I think that's with anything else. We can overthink ourselves to nothingness and then think through why we didn't think through the thing, right? But you have to do it. And before my very first party, which was on my like 44th birthday or something like that, before I even like threw a party, the night before, not even the night before, hours before the party, I was back in my house grabbing one last little detail that I thought I needed for the event to make it perfect or whatever. And it was a rug. I needed to grab this rug from my attic to bring it to the space. And I laid on the rug in a ball. And I was like, what am I doing to myself? Like, I could be enjoying this Saturday with my family. It's literally my birthday. Like, I could be doing anything other than this. And I'm about to put this idea into the world. And these 40 or 50 people are about to come in to celebrate this little girl's birthday party. And they could hate it. And it could be awful. And everything could go wrong. And why have I chosen to bring this idea to life? And I sat there in a ball, like literally holding myself. And then fortunately, I don't really have a choice with this business but to show up, because people will then come to the space. So, a lot of this has been compulsion beyond myself. I have the idea, I put it into the universe, and then I immediately regret that I've told anyone that I want to do the thing. But because I've said it and I've set a timeline, now I have to do it. And so I think the doing of it, sometimes you have to do it before you're ready, and you have to fail, because that's what kids do when they grow up. They fail so many times, and we've so normalized that growth when you're young includes failure, and our job as parents is to coach children through that, and that at some fictional time you're not supposed to fail anymore, and that fail and that discomfort in your body and all of these things you run from and you protect yourself from, and you keep a little bubble around yourself. But the reality is that that growth and learning should continuously be part of our journey before we're no longer here on this earth. And so the discomfort of it and normalizing it is still very much, I want to be clear, a journey that I am on, but I am learning to accept and normalize how uncomfortable that is, because in order for me to fully show up as the woman, not only that I want to be, but that I'm supposed to be on this planet, like, I have to continue to move forward when it's messy and ugly and I'm failing in front of people and doing it all wrong, And so normalizing that part of it, not just the finish line part of it, not just I'm the founder of this business, I did this, I sold it. Like, the finish line that is like a microsecond of what you're working towards, It's all of the messy bit of it. Like, you have to go through it. There's no escaping it. So that would be my closing, normalizing the messy.
We need that preach button. And I have to share that the client who booked their very first party at the Play Shop was recently attending the Play Shop's second birthday, had their anniversary. Of course, Milagros threw a fabulous party to celebrate. And that very first client was in that room celebrating the birthday of the business, which was just so cool to see. Leah, what would you share to close us out?
To piggyback on what Milagros was saying, that in my way, what I was going to show up saying is that if you feel called to do something, no matter what your belief system is, that there's already the energy and the intention for you to see that through, and that you don't have to know necessarily how to do it or have the plan. Although I'm sure that that could help to maybe control and minimize fear and anxiety, but that sometimes you just have to take that one step and keep putting your foot in front of the other every day. And I think fully brace yourself for knowing that there's going to be a lot of energetic work, emotional work, um, mental work too, to make that thing happen. That for me, I have had to go deeper than I've ever gone before. I mean, even deeper than motherhood took me, or any of my past trauma or grief or my highs. And that I have to be comfortable in that in between, that suspension of not knowing where I'm going, but still feeling like I'm walking properly forward. And that I define what properly is, right? That it's this thing that I feel in my body, that it's not society telling me go this way or this way, um, that I really have to feel into myself. And that's why it's been so heavy hitting for me, because I've had to open up to parts of myself that I didn't even know needed opening, and acknowledge parts of myself I didn't even know needed acknowledging. Um, all to do a business that I just thought was going to be like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, Olivia, let's do some website edits.
Thank you. I love perspective. And Alyssa, I'll turn it over to you for any closing thoughts you want to share.
I'm gonna it's a similar echo. I think trusting the journey allows you to trust your business and trust your growth. And I think that just just trust the journey, I guess. And you can't overthink it. It's just you're on the journey. I guess that's my one liner. You're on the journey. And um I spent so much time trying to figure out what road to take when I finally realized that I'm on it. I'm on the road. And this is not a one-liner, but just wanted to throw it in because I didn't get to throw it in anywhere else. Like, that nervous system regulation is so important, and such an important tool that I use. And it's like little things. Like, yes, a daily 15-20 minute meditation would be wonderful for my nervous system, but also like a aromatherapy spray. That'll reset my nervous system in like 5 seconds. And so having like pockets full of 5-second nervous system regulation resets is like my tool I want to send everybody home with. And a lot of that is what I learned from Olivia. So yeah, that's it for me.
Oh, thank you. I mean, what a group. Thank you so much. I am just in awe of what you've already created, what you continue to create. And to everyone else, like so you've seen what happens when you choose to upgrade your identity, not by grinding harder, but by stepping into who you're meant to be. So I would love to see, I know so much wisdom was dropped in this chat. I would love to see your top takeaways if you could pop those in the chat. My favorite way to end a session. Alyssa, Leah, Milagros, thank you for showing us what's possible. And as we've talked about, like, yes, strategy matters. And like, goodness knows we've covered a lot of that this week by design. But it's this inner identity work and the energy you carry and the way you see yourself that changes everything. And sometimes we need other people to be those vision holders for us while we are stepping into that space. And so building your circle of support, building your team around you who can help hold that most beautiful, most expansion vision for you it's an essential business practice. And so if you're feeling that nudge, if you're tired of piecing things together or second guessing your offers or pouring your energy into content and effort that doesn't convert, this is your invitation. So when you claim your next level identity, you stop spinning your wheels and you start attracting the right clients for you. You start charging what your work is truly worth. I've got a hunch it's a lot more than what you are currently charging, y'all. Just gonna leave that there. And the feeling that your energy, the energy of your business is truly rising to meet you. So this is the moment to step into who you're becoming. And because you are here right now, I know that you are being called forth into something even more powerful, awesome, transformational, exciting than where you've already been. I know phenomenal things are in store for you. So I would love to talk to you about that. So I would love, if you are interested, you could book a free call with me. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And together we'll clarify who you're becoming. We'll dream big. We'll hold that vision. We'll align your business with that version of you and open the door to the clients, the money, the opportunities that match who you are here to be. So as you've seen on this panel, when you say yes to your next level identity, everything else starts to fall into place. And that has started for you today by being on this call. So thank you everyone who is here live. Thank you everyone who's watching the replay. I'm going to check the chat for any key takeaways. Let me scroll up here. Brittany says, you can't move your life forward by thinking, you can only do it by doing. Oof, 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 right? Like, can't we just read the books? Can't. I have this book about really effective swimming technique up on my bookshelf. I've read it. You should see me in the pool. Leah, oh, thank you. It was my absolute joy to gather us for Thrive 2025. Deep shares, trust your calling. Failing is learning. Embrace the messy middle. You're on the road and journey. Trust the process. Yes. And Megan says, thank you for this and all of the sessions, trusting in yourself and in the life of your business. Others often see your worth or value before you step into that space. Yes, trust them. If someone is sharing a vision of you that is bigger than you can imagine, than you can conceive right now, and a little part of you just sparks at that, know that it's real. Know that that is waiting for you. Know that that is already becoming. I want to give you all giant hugs. Thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you for making Thrive 2025 just a brilliant week. My heart is so full. Go forth and be in touch.